Jeb Clark came from a long line of Derbyshire clerks, most of them clerks, which sounded just the same as his name when he spoke the words, for one fancy solicitor or another. His father were a clerk, his brother a clerk, his uncles all clerks. He too were supposed to have been another clerk clerking, working at a desk all the months of the year, out of the wind and rain and sun. Like most things in his world, that plan had not worked. One needed to read and write and cipher to be a clerk. But he had done plenty well for himself after the schoolmaster threw him out on his arse after another failed examination. An apprenticeship with a master bricklayer, and the, he was told, uncanny ability to see exactly how a project should go before the first brick were laid, gave him a solid pay 6 months out of the year, and enough to live on the rest of the months, if he were smart about it, until the weather turned and building started back up again, especially living in the home of Butterley Brickworks, where brickmen were always wanted. It might have been nice to have a profession out of the weather, but that was not his real problem. No, the true bane of his life was hearing dragons. Something very few people in the whole of England would understand. No clerk had ever heard dragons. Not his mother, not his father, not his brothers, uncles, aunts, or cousins. Not a one. They thought him rather daft for hearing creatures speak what the good Lord had not made for speech. At least he had the good sense not to claim he saw dragons too, only the dogs and cats and birds and horses that the little dragons persuaded the dragon deaf to see them as. Still, if not for the local vicar who took him in and made the madness go away by introducing Jeb to the Blue Order and the good dragon-hearing folk of England, he would have been locked away in a family basement to rot. The vicar's help were useful for his family accepting him back, but little else. The vicar said it were supposed to be that the high folk of the order would hire and give work to the low, making sure that the order took care of its own, but that never quite worked out. Nothing much seemed to, so it were hardly a surprise that things had seemed for just a moment there that they was looking up. Getting hired to work on Butterley Hall's new kitchen could have set him for the rest of the year, with less scrimping and saving than usual. But the dragons had to ruin it, just like they ruined everything. This morning, with its lovely cool and sunny weather, and singing birds, and the twittering fairy dragons he tried to ignore, were the sort of morning a man should enjoy. All his tools at his side, bricks and mortar, plentiful and in easy reach. The first foot, maybe two, of the wall should have been laid by midday. Then the damned architect came by with his damned son, who found the damned nest of damned dragon eggs. Tatzelworm by the look of them, and the nest. Daft little catworms, good for catching vermin, but little else. What sort of stupid creature laid eggs so easy to find? No reason for the stupid, lazy, shiftless child to have been there. No reason for the child to try to destroy the nest and eggs. No reason for the bloody architect to fire him for stopping the boy. What kind of man allowed his whelp? Bah, what point? What were done, were done. Mully Grubbin weren't going to get the job back or add to the scant coin in his pocket. At least his room were paid to the end of the week. There would be time, a little, to sort it all out. He scuffed along the wide coach road, lined by fields of bleating sheep munching sweet-blooming clover, towards the village that peeked through distant trees. Dust rose in little clouds with every step. His heavy canvas work apron, he had not even bothered to take it off, spattered with mud and mortar, flapped across his shins in rhythm with his steps, the same one that governed the clank of his tool-bag against his hip. He smelled like brick and sweat. The taste coated his tongue, too. He were what he were, from his battered hat that shaded his eyes to his worn and splattered boots. None could mistake him for anything genteel, which simply meant he needed to find another employer, sooner, not later. Asking the family for help were no option, at least not one he were willing to take.